Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Katie Williams. So, Katie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Great to have you. Let me tell our listeners a little bit about you and then we'll get chatting, okay?
Sounds good.
Katie Williams has a doctorate in general psychology with an emphasis on cognition and instruction and an MS in counseling psychology. She is also a licensed mental health counselor. During her doctorate study, she devoted herself to reading the Bible, which took 4 years. At that time, she was led down a path of discovery, which brought about her spiritual awakening. She has thousands of hours studying the law of attraction and loves to combine psychology, spirituality, and law of attraction in her work and in her podcasts. And it was through your podcast that I met you.
Yes, and I'm so glad that we did. And that was done very nicely. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction.
You're welcome. Tell me, how long have you been doing podcasts?
Let's see. The launch date, the anniversary is coming up. October 5th will be my 1-year launch anniversary, but it actually started several months before that. I was very type A. I say I was because I've kind of grown from that, but I had to have everything lined up and ready to go before I was able to launch. So it actually started March of that year is when I started. The idea came to me like, I'm going to have a podcast. Let's do this thing.
I have to chuckle because sometimes I have big ideas and want to get things going, and then I spend all my time thinking about it. And my daughter said to me one day, Mom, that failure to launch movie, it's you, failure to launch. And I'm like, darn it, they've called me on it. So that's the thing with people with anxiety, right? They can just be doing so many things that to try to stay focused and follow through is not a strong point.
Well, that's a really good point. A lot of times when that's not a bad thing, I just want to say, because procrastination kind of falls into that category of not moving into action, but that serves a really good purpose. It serves the purpose of knowing that your energy's not lined up yet. And that's okay. And it's good that you don't take action until it's all lined up. Otherwise, it doesn't usually go the way you want it to go. So give yourself a little bit of a break when that happens and know that, hey, it's just building. It'll get there when it gets there.
That's right. All needing to look at the good side and the bad side and find some kind of a healthy balance, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us about your journey. We did say it a little bit in the intro, but wow, I absolutely loved that, combining spirituality, the psychology, and the law of attraction all in one.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as I found the law of attraction and these universal truths, in my opinion, I knew that there was a different way that of going about mental health treatment. And that's kind of what I talk about on the podcast. I gear things more toward the spiritual side than I do the psychology side, but I do talk about how there's what I consider to be a better way of going about mental health treatment. And that is not focusing on the problem as much and really focusing on the way you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that starts to build energy. Anything you focus on builds energy. And if you're focusing on the problem gets bigger. But if you're focused on the solution, then the solution gets bigger. So that's really kind of my wheelhouse. I really want to change the way we think about mental health as far as how we approach treating it.
I love that. It's beautiful and true, because it's true that what you focus on really tends to be getting bigger and bigger, and you can't get away from it. And so talking about anxiety and saying I'm an anxious person, you're keeping that story alive, right? And then you talk about it, you think about it, and then you own it. And we don't want to be owning something we don't like.
Oh my gosh. Laura, I'm so glad you said that, because after you and I spoke last time And I was sitting with this and I was thinking, where am I going to take this for the summit? And I really wanted to kind of organize my thoughts. Your story, and you gave me permission before to talk about your own anxiety. Do I still have that permission?
You sure do.
Okay. Some of the things that you were saying really stuck with me. And I sat with it and I started getting some kind of intuitive guidance for you specifically. And one of the things that you said, which relates to what you just said about saying, I am anxious, was you said, I'm a busybody. And that phrase really stuck with me. And I sat with it and I thought, well, that just feels anxious to me. Saying something like, I'm a busybody, like your body is always in motion, it's always busy, it's never resting. And just like what you just said with those I am statements that are so powerful, that was one of the things that really stuck out to me that you were expressing in relationship to your own anxiety, that you have this belief that your body is in motion constantly. And that feels exhausting to me, just thinking about
Mm-hmm.
it.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
But our beliefs are powerful, things that we define ourselves as. And that has a way of manifesting outwardly in our lives. And if you say something like, I am a busybody, then law of attraction comes in and says, yes, you are. Here's more things to make you a busybody.
And being aware of what you're saying and catching it is just step one. And that can go on for quite a while for some people. And then you move to a place where you're starting to change those phrases. You have to work at it a little bit. It's not just something you can do instantly today.
Right. Yeah, inner dialogue is important for sure.
So anxiety is, of course, a negative emotion on the lower part of the
Yes,
emotional scale.
that's right.
It sure be nice if it's full of energy and life and you can get a lot done, but we sure want to turn that around to use it more, have it be more powerful, healthy
Yeah.
energy. I guess turning it into excitement and motivation rather than how it usually depletes us because we don't know how to release it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up the emotional guidance scale. It's definitely something that I want to talk about. I pulled it up in this book. If any of your listeners are familiar with Abraham Hicks, this is the Ask and It Is Given book, Abraham Hicks, and the emotional guidance scale is in here. And I looked at it and I thought, where does anxiety fit in here? Because anxiety isn't one of the emotions that's actually defined on the scale. And I started thinking about it, and down here at the bottom, there's fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. That's as low as you can go. And then at the high point, there's joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, and appreciation. So down here at the bottom, let's go midway. Midway, there's around 10, 11 right in there. There's 22 in all. Is frustration, irritation, impatience, overwhelmment, disappointment. And then you come down a little further, you're getting into doubt and worry. And I thought, well, anxiety could definitely fall somewhere in there. A lot of times worry is associated with that anxious feeling. But all the way down at the bottom, I think it also fits in with fear. A lot of fear is really manifesting as anxiety. Fear of whatever it might be. And I'm going to bring your experience in again because I started thinking about, you mentioned I think you were having dinner with your husband and you couldn't stay focused on what you were doing with him or the conversation you were having with him because in your mind you were thinking about all of this going on with the summit, right? All of the things that you're organizing and all the things you have to do. And that to me felt like a fear of not getting it all done.
Right, right.
Is that accurate? Okay.
It is. And I can have a big list of 10 things, but in order to help myself with that, I have to look, what are the 2 things I'm going to do right now? Sometimes I have to bring it down to 1. What's the one
Yes.
most important thing I can do right now?
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to offer some interventions at the end of the conversation, some things that I think might help that we can talk about. But one of the things is when you know you're in that state and you obviously aren't able to focus, but you want to, right? You want to be present for your husband. You want to be present in the moment. Actually, you just want to be able to relax. Isn't that the truth? Like,
Mhm.
you don't want to feel this worry and fear and anxiety. You want to like give yourself a break because you've been working hard. But focus is something that is intentional but also really difficult when you're still in that high energy state. And one of the things that I thought would be helpful for you specifically is a kind of energy clearing. Like when you go into your work mode and then you do your work, and then when you're done and you go, okay, I'm getting ready to move into this next segment of time. And in this segment of time, I want to feel relaxed and I want to be present and mindful. And I'm going to let my work just sit here and be done for the day. And actually setting that intention and even just clearing your body from it and leaving it at your desk. Leave the energy there before you even leave the room. I just had this sense that that might be something that would be helpful for you.
Mhm. Mhm. It's like leaving work. You take a big breath. It's like kind of like cutting the cord of that energy that ties you to it so that you can come home and leave work behind. When you work at
Yeah, it's
home,
sticky energy. Like
you have to make
Velcro.
yeah, you have to keep that front of mind so that you can have that little bit of a separation when you leave your office to go for a walk or to have supper with your spouse or your family.
Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to say about the scale is when you understand the scale and you know the different emotions that are on it, what you can do is start to pivot your energy and direct it in the way you want it to go, which always is up, right? You always want to feel better. You're looking for that soothing feeling.
Mhm.
And if you know where you are, then what you can do is just reach for the next emotion that's up on the scale. Try to get to that place and feel that way, and then up from there, up as high as you can go. And let's not assume you can go from fear all the way up to joy. You know, this is a gradual thing. This is something that takes time and effort and energy. But even if you can move up a little bit and get some relief, that's a win because anxiety is debilitating for people and you can't even function. And you want to enjoy your life. So, as an example, let's say that your anxiety is surrounded around worry or doubt. The next emotion up from that is disappointment. So, can you think of some way to feel disappointed? And I know that sounds weird because it's not a positive thing, but when you know that it's this gradual increase, it is a positive thing. So, you reach for feeling disappointed, then you reach for feeling overwhelmed. Go ahead and jump onto frustration, pessimism, boredom. And then you really start to see a drastic change once you reach boredom, because then you can move into contentment. And that feels like mellow, right? Like, okay, I'm content. I'm not negative. I'm not positive. I'm just content. And that, I would say, that little jump there, let's see, six steps up the emotional scale, that would be a lot. That would be a lot of relief for somebody who is anxious.
Mhm. Yeah. It means you might have a better night's sleep. You might be less irritated around the family. Yeah.
Just maybe a little bit more satisfied with your life because that's why we're here. That's the whole point of living is for us to be here and feel satisfied with this physical life that we get to experience. And feeling anxious does not feel good. It feels terrible. And you mentioned negative emotion. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's what anxiety is every single time. And it has to do with alignment, which is what I wanted to talk about,
Mm.
because alignment is always the answer. And if you're feeling any kind of negative emotion, that means you are misaligned. And I also wanted to talk about you specifically as far as your intuition. I think it is incredible that you have the ability to tune in intuitively. This is something you used to do. You used to tune in intuitively and read for people, correct? Okay.
Yes.
That is the definition of alignment. You have to be aligned with that higher self in order to receive intuition. And you mentioned that you've somewhat lost that ability since the anxiety has taken hold, which makes perfect sense because anxiety just means you're out of alignment.
Mm. Yes. And I think that I'm I'm not alone in the whole anxiety got really large and really big for a lot of people during COVID. Our
Yeah,
attention was just pulled in so many directions out of fear. What's happening, you know, and that need to know and that need to have a little control and have our lives go in the same kind of pattern they always were. And it's gone on for like several years, and the pattern has kind of set in. And now myself and maybe others are now working at trying to bring that back down into a more comfortable level. Sometimes it has to get a little while before they realize that, oh, this isn't good. Like maybe they
yeah,
have relationship problems, money problems, staying at work and keeping a job, or um, they've discovered that they're handling their anxiety or depression in very negative ways with addictions or something like that.
true.
And we always want to get to it earlier. We want to get to it before it starts to wreak havoc on our lives, for sure.
Well, and I one other thing that you said, and I'm feeling like maybe COVID had something to do with this. You tell me. But when COVID happened, we all had to slow down big time. We weren't able to go anywhere. We couldn't see anybody. People's jobs changed. And you mentioned something just briefly when we were chatting about, you said something like, at my age, I should be retired. And and I started thinking about that. And I started thinking, well, that's a belief that, you've been exposed to in some way by society. Because nobody says you have to be retired, right? You can do whatever you want to do. I'm glad that you are. But there's that pressure, that pressure from society of when you become a certain age, it's time for you to slow down and it's time for you to relax and not work anymore. And that's kind of what COVID did. It like pushed everybody into retirement mode, no matter how old we were or what we did or what we were ready for. And it kind of took away our power of choosing what we wanted to do and when we wanted to do it. Does that feel like it has something to do with the anxiety for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you've kind of gotten a mode of being busier, you seem to attach that to feeling valued, needed, productive, on task, all that kind of stuff. And when you didn't have anything to do, it felt bad to sit and relax, to read a book, or to have nothing to do, right? So during COVID, I still kept myself super busy, renovated the house.
Oh, very productive of you.
That's right. But yeah, it brought to our attention how things were before, and it just kind of brought things up to the forefront.
You also mentioned something about worthiness. Do you
Mm.
remember where your mind was when you brought up worthiness when we were chatting?
The keeping busy, having something to do, feeling like you're contributing, all of that I think is based in a need to feel worthy. So
Mm-hmm.
to just sit and relax and read a book and not be doing anything is not comfortable to me.
I relate with that. I remember laying on my bed as a kid and hearing my dad come up the stairs And I jumped out of bed and started cleaning my room because I didn't feel like it was okay for me to be relaxing. I had this feeling of I need to be in some sort of action when he sees me so that he would approve. And I think it comes down to a feeling of worthiness.
Yes, that's exactly true.
And my understanding now, based on my research and universal law, is that that's one of the biggest human misconceptions in the world, is that our worthiness is measured by action. That isn't really the case. Worthiness is something you can never earn because you already obtain it. It's a birthright. It's given to you. You are worthy. There's nothing you have to do to have worthiness ever.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that can be difficult when you have been living a different way, or you have been influenced by others who really want you to do what they want you to do to make them happy. And here you are striving to earn that sense of worthiness from them.
True. So true. So the law of attraction is teaches and helps us understand to look at how a pattern is showing up and decide, do you like it? Or do you want it to change?
That's right.
Right? Because everybody has to decide, and then you can go forward with that. Because it's not wrong, it's not right. It's just, is it working for you? Do you still like it? If not, and start focusing on something that's better.
Yes, it's preferences. We get to sift and sort and choose what we like.
Mm.
And then if we are choosing to be a deliberate creator, then we can choose to create it the way we want it to be, rather than just looking at it like this is happening to me. That's where law of attraction really shines.
Mm.
When you can get in there and you can direct it and make it the way you want it to be. That's when life is really satisfying.
Right. Right. So law tie together for us, law of attraction and anxiety, how they really fit together in this what we're talking about here today.
You bet. Law of attraction, like you said, is, well, basically you get what you think about, you get what you feel. So if you're feeling anxious, the universe doesn't judge that. It just gives you more to feel anxious about. And you mentioned kind of intervening early or getting ahead of it and how that's important. And it really, really is. Because once that thing has momentum and that ball is rolling, it's really hard to stop it in its tracks and turn it around. But if you can catch it at the early stages and say, okay, I know this is law of attraction. I know that I'm having thoughts that are not serving me, and my emotions don't feel good, and that's my guide. I know I'm out of alignment because I'm not feeling good right now. I can make a choice right now to try to turn this around. Anybody who has ever experienced anxiety knows that in that moment, what do you want? You want to feel better. You want feelings of being grounded, calm, relaxed, at ease, peaceful, free, light, floaty, carefree, simple, present, mindful, clear, satisfied, chill, safe, comfortable, and cozy. That was 18 ways to feel that are in opposition to feeling anxious. And I chose 18 specifically because it's important for gaining momentum. Because if you want to turn things around and pivot into a positive direction, you have to be able to focus for 16 or 17 seconds, and then law of attraction will bring you more of the same.
Mm. That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool. It's one of those things you can practice. This is something that does take practice. It takes some effort.
Mm-hmm. So bringing in those words. How do you suggest bringing in those words? Just some thoughts? Like, it'd be nice to have that little list up every once in a while, and that emotional scale chart and that beside it or on the same chart. That would be really cool. I like those kinds
Yeah.
of things. I find them helpful. What other kind of tools do you recommend that people can use to help decrease their anxiety?
Yes. Well, recognizing it right when it's happening is really important because that's when you can intervene. If
Mm.
you're getting there halfway through the day or toward the end of the day, the best thing you can do is just make it to bed and start over the next day. Because once momentum has you, it has you. It's got to play out. So negative momentum works the same way as positive momentum. And there's a respect for that. And it's okay to be like, you know what? Today wasn't the best day. I'm just going to go to bed and I'm going to start over tomorrow. That's okay. But some other things you can do is segment intending. And I touched on that just a little bit earlier. When you're moving from one segment to the next, your whole day is broken up into segments. You're getting out of bed. You're getting into the shower. You're getting out of the shower. Whatever your next step is, that's a segment. And if you can consciously say, wouldn't it be nice if when I get out of the shower, it goes like this? Or wouldn't it be nice if when I walk into work, this happens? You're just lining up with the way you want it to be. You're setting your intentions for each segment of your day. And that can be really powerful and really helpful. Another thing that I think would be helpful for you specifically, because you have a lot on your plate. You have a lot that you are managing. And this is what came to me when I started thinking about you, is another one of these processes that's in this book, this Abraham book, Ask and It Is Given. It's called the placemat technique. Are you familiar with it?
No, you're going to have to remind me. I have read the book,
Okay.
but
Okay. The placemat technique is basically you and the universe are going to check off everything on your to-do list. And you can basically just draw a line down a piece of paper and you put the things that you're going to handle today on one side and the things that the universe is going to handle on the other side.
mm.
So the things on your side are the things you definitely have to take care of today that need your attention today. And everything else that's on your list for however many more days you plan to work on those things goes on the universe side. You'll be amazed at how many things get done that you haven't even had to put your energy on because you are investing in faith. You're lifting it up and saying, hey, take this on for me. You'll find that people are calling you. You don't have to call them. Things will just start to play out. And the universe is on your side. You have an inner being who is 100% focused on giving you everything you want. You just have to trust in it a little bit and allow it to take the load off so that you can enjoy what you're doing and not get overwhelmed, not get anxious about everything that has to get done all at once. You have somebody there to help you all the time. You just have to let it happen.
I love that. It's a perfect thing to do at the end of the day, just before you get into bed, because you can clear your mind. Because a lot of that worrying and projecting forward are things that may not ever happen. Probably 90% of them don't really come true, but we worry about them. And if there are things we really shouldn't be handling or can't handle, it can free our mind to just put those down on that piece of paper. Shorten our list down to a few things that we know are real things that we can take care of. Anything that can release some of that burden in our mind, because sometimes it feels like you're dragging a ball and chain everywhere you go, and that's your anxiety, your worries. So anything that can help release that's going to be a good tool to have. So that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. The last thing I would say, and the thing that I think is the end all fix all, is meditation. It's so important to meditate and find your alignment with your inner being, with your source energy, because that is the solution to everything. All the answers are there. All of the inspired action is there. You get the guidance you need when you're in alignment. And it only takes 15 or 20 minutes a day just to not think. You're lowering the resistance when you don't think thoughts, because that's what produces anxiety, is those negative thoughts that then manifest into that emotion.
Right.
So taking time to meditate, the most important thing I could say to anybody.
Mm-hmm. So people with anxiety can understand, go somewhere and try to sit quietly for a while. They might be turned off with meditation because they're like, I can't do that. My mind won't shut off long enough to do that. But they just have to kind of reword it and think about it in a different way. And that's just going into a quiet place and not being attached to those thoughts that are running. Just notice them. Just be the observer, right?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. I have never had a meditation session where I've been completely thoughtless. That's the goal. That's, what I'm striving for every time. But I am who I am, and I think a lot, and I'm a little uptight. I kind of run on the tight end. I had terrible anxiety in the past. So I understand. I understand that it feels like it's something you can't do. But even a 1 minute over the whole course of that 15 to 20 minutes, if you do it 1 minute, that's still raising your vibration. That's still getting you closer. That's still a good session of meditation. That's success. Just be easy on yourself and love yourself and let it be okay to be however it is you're being. And that aligns you right there, because your inner being is always sitting in that positive place and seeing the good in every moment. And you can too with your human consciousness if you are trying to, if you're looking for it.
I like that. Yeah, don't go with an agenda or a way that the meditation has to look. Everybody's different, so
yeah, there's no perfect way.
Yeah. So tell us about what other things you do besides podcasts.
So I do offer one-on-one sessions using law of attraction for people that want to apply it to their lives in order to manifest what they want. It's coaching sessions. I can do that privately or for episodes on the podcast. Some people really like to be a part of the show. So we can do it either way is how I gear that.
And did you have a free offering for the listeners today?
Yeah. So I have a Patreon account. It's a membership program, and there's 3 different tiers, and there's an option for a free trial. So anybody that wants to do a free trial of the aligned tier for my Patreon, I will, let's see, the summit ends around August 13th. So up until that point, anybody who signs up for that tier free trial, I will enter into a drawing for a free one-on-one law of attraction coaching session with me.
All right. Any last words that we want to leave our listeners with?
I guess the message that I would want to share is, though it can be helpful to look externally for help from people like therapists or coaches, honestly, you really don't need it. All of the power of the universe is within you. And learning how to align with that will bring about all the solutions, all of the soothing, all the relief that you need. Everything comes down to being aligned. And that is my wish for everybody, is to find what works for you so that you can feel that sense of alignment with your true higher self.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Katie, for being here.
My pleasure.
The places that people can find you most are
the Dr. Williams podcast.
Okay.
It's Feel Good Now. And then I'm on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm on YouTube, all Dr. Williams podcast. And my website is www.drwilliamspodcast.com.
Wonderful. We will be putting all of those links down below so that you can have an easy time finding those. So thank you for being here. It was a pleasure, and I loved your
It was my pleasure.
information. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really
You're
an
very
honor.
welcome. And you have a wonderful summer.
If you like being able to watch the podcast, make sure to let me know by subscribing to this channel.